Did you know monks can be more than Zen and spiritualism? Welcome to the Attic Dungeon. My name is Sam, and whether you want to feng your shui or just punch him in the kidneys, I'm here to help you with everything. You're back again. Wonderful. Yes, I'm sure I've already talked to you about this before, but if you actually like what I do, subscribe, click the bell, leave a comment, make my day with all your glorious compliments. Just be nice to me if you could. Well then, we are back for another episode of our role-playing guides, and today we are having a look at the monk. Yes, our favorite martial artist. It used to be our only martial artist, but nowadays fighters can actually punch something as well. Haha. So the monk. What does it mean to be a monk? If you look at the traditional image people have for this class, it are those tranquil martial artist masters, the Bruce Lees and Jackie Chans, that remain calm under any situation but can whoop your ass when you're not looking. Obviously, I am here to first help you achieve this glorious stereotype of the tranquil master, and then I'm here to rip it to shreds by showing you some other ways on how you can roleplay the monk. We start with the traditional monk, of course, and how you can dress up your monk to make it seem like you actually know what you're doing, because that's what it's all about. When creating a monk for the stylistic / visual aspect, there are some simple things to think about. First off, your monastery. The traditional monk is trained in a monastery, and now we're not thinking about those Western Europe bald circle type of guys. We're talking about Asian monasteries, of course. And there's some very simple questions that might remind you a bit of my Paladin video. You're going to ask yourself, what are the rules imposed by my monastery? What can I do? What can I not do? Advice, something like a vow of silence is pretty annoying because you're excluding yourself completely from the social aspect of the game. But maybe your monk is not allowed to drink. Maybe your monk always has to walk bare feet to keep in contact with the earth. I don't know, I'm just giving some hints here. Can he kill? Can your monk kill? Or is every attack they do with non-lethal intent? It's a very real possibility if you have some sort of balance-inspired monastery. Are they allowed to mingle for romantic purposes? If not, that could be a really fun storyline where they actually get in love with someone, and how does the monk react to that? In general, it's relatively fun to see the rigid rules from a monastery. They are not known for having very relaxed rules in general. Clash with the outside world. How does your monk operate in the outside world? Is he completely okay with it, and is he able to maintain his rules and his vows, often clashing with maybe the people around him, but not in an aggressive way? Or is he the one who discovers the outside world and reflects on his monastery rules and traditions and maybe becomes a whole other person? Who knows? So that's the first bit. Think about where you were trained. Maybe also about how you wound up there. Were you born into this monastery? Were you an orphan picked up and trained there? Did you go to the monastery at a maybe a bit later age because stuff in your life went to shits and you needed a place to relax and just participate in some activities to take your mind off things, and along the way you became a kung fu master of whoopassery? All very possible things for the monk, with this monastery being a place of calm meditation and repentance for some even. Next up, the more visual aspect, of course. How does your monk fight? A friend of mine plays a monk in a series of one-shots anime right now, and he really likes to describe every punch and kick that the monk is doing, which I absolutely think is wonderful. Absolutely. I haven't been drinking yet, and I'm not Sean Connery, but hey. If you're having trouble thinking of how this would look, think of Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra if you want. where the different benders, their bending arts are all based on existing martial arts, and there's clear differences between the earth bending, which is very linear with hooks and stuff, and the water and air bending, which is more flowy. So do you have a flowy monk? Do you have this strong monk? Something like that. It's a nice visual touch that defines, maybe that shows your personality by looking at the way you fight. And that is not even tackling how you approach a fight. It's just your martial arts style. What does it look like? Are there signature moves? Do you Hadouken now and then, or are you more the Shoryuken type of guy? Don't forget there is actually a subclass of monks that can Hadouken. I'm not making this up. So your fighting style is something very defining, I think, for the visual aspect of your monk. Just like clothing. Are you one of those crazy people who can walk around in winter in a t-shirt? Or does your monastery have some traditional clothing? So that's also a visual aspect that obviously reflects back on your monastery. I already talked about worldview for the monk. I think it's nice to think for a moment how much they know about the world. If they were born into the monastery and always raised there, and it's their first time entering the real world, they're going to play completely different from a monk who went to the monastery to find rest and peace and whoop-assery, because they already know what the world looks like, and maybe they will act differently from how they used to act before because they've spent 10 years in a monastery. Who knows? Seem to be bouncing back and forth a bit. Going back to the visual style of your monk, don't forget that a monk can do so much more than just punch people. Every part of your body can be used for an unarmed attack, technically speaking. So don't feel yourself limited to just punching stuff. You can kick, headbutt, heck, for all I care, you could body slam them, but it would just deal the same damage and have the same effect than a normal martial attack. But that is also quite involved in the visual aspect of your monk. How do you kick ass? Which body parts do you use? I had a satyr monk in a Vandalver campaign last year. I was a bard. He used every body part. The hooves, the fists, the horns, the face, biting, everything went. Was a completely hilarious character. Was actually a goat who got recently transformed into a satyr, and the only thing he could do was punch and kick, so he was a monk. And there, the entire thing about how well you know the outside world, not at all. Hilarious character. Kudos to the guys who played it. We all loved it very dearly. So I think that's actually most of what you need to know for your traditional monk. Just really flesh out your monastery. Maybe think of who your mentor was, just like with the fighter, for example. So your dungeon master can have an NPC to link your backstory to. Maybe you meet your mentor. How is your mentor? What are their worldviews on your monastery life? Stuff like that. Just flesh out the backstory and then flesh out the visual aspect and how much your monk is familiar with the non-monastic world. And this is where we draw a little box about the traditional monk. We close the lid and we shove him to the side, never to be seen again, because now it is attic dungeon time. It is the moment where I present to you my weirder ideas that I have for this class when it comes to concept. So again, these completely use the same monk class features, but they just reskin them a bit. Add extra flavor, like a pack of noodles that comes with a tiny spice bag, and you know you need more. So let's start with one idea that clashes against the idea of the monk as a gentle monastic warrior, the tranquil master. A while ago, I played in a Storm King's Thunder campaign as a monk, a dwarf named Grud. Grud was a piece of work, not a bad guy, but not the Feng Shui Zen Ki monk you would expect. Half the time he was drunk, obviously he was a drunken master subclass, and he would not shy from actually starting a fight, and he was pretty good at lying as well. Now, players didn't always know this, but Grud was actually a spy who took up the entire act of being a belligerent drunk to hide his true identity as a spy. So here you see me already layering the monk, like from being an actual clever spy, which is easy for the monk. I mean, you have those ninja-like subclasses, easy to achieve. But on the outside, he was just an angry dwarf. And you could just play the monk as an angry street fighter who learned to fight in the streets of Winterdeep, Neverwinter, pick your city. He learned to fight out on the streets. Instead of stunning strike people, he just punches them in the kidney real hard so they can't move for an entire turn. It's stuff like that that makes the monk fun. This type of Street Fighter might actually rely on their fists and headbutts more and might not kick that much. You're just angry, you're short-tempered, you're actually the barbarian of the party, but you're still butt naked. Barbarians are butt naked as well. You're squishy, you're angry, and you punch stuff through the wall. I actually had a ton of fun playing Grud, as he was called, because I don't like being... I have difficulties being the background character. That doesn't mean I hog the spotlight all the time, but I like to be out and about and doing stuff, and being an angry dwarf gave me a nice excuse to butt in now and then and put some stuff in motion when I wanted to put stuff in motion, while still playing the monk class, which I wanted to test out for a while. So I had Grud, the angry street fighter, who is actually a relatively clever dwarven spy. So those are two things already that you can do with your monk. Spy, angry street fighter, both combined. There you go. Next up, monks could also be any type of a professional athlete. Specifically, I could look at martial artist for sure, but imagine I'm really bad at sports. Mike Tyson, I know Mike Tyson, there we go. A guy who is obviously trained to fight in the ring. They are trained to fight in regulated combat. Maybe Mike's not the best example. I believe he ate people's ear in the ring. Anyway, any boxer, a wrestler maybe, though I would tend to make that into a barbarian a bit more because you need strength, but like a boxer, a Thai boxer, French box, English box, I don't care, martial arts, karate, judo, whatever you have in your world as martial arts, he's on a professional level. He's actually pretty good at this. He's in competitions, he fights in the ring, they win their matches, and then for some reason they wind up in the real world. So here's that aspect again. This person has lived in some bubble of fame and glory and is just thrust out into the world with adequate fighting skill, but not in real combat. They're used to fighting one-on-one with an opponent who abides by the same rules as they do. It will be a completely different gig. One they have to fight bugbears who really don't care if they eat you or not, which would correlate really well to the... You already know how to punch, so you have a few monk levels maybe, but you're not level 20 yet because you only fought in regulated matches. You haven't unlocked your full potential. Obviously here we're putting the monk out of the monastery again, but also in a fame and fortune setting, which I think I've never had a monk who was like a glorious fighter. They tend to be a bit more... How the character is doesn't really matter. Here I mostly tempered with the background. Completely different background, still very martial arts related. Technically speaking, it's even possible to have like a football or a rugby player or an athlete, like a long distance runner or whatever, become a part of a party, because the monk is very agile. You learn to run up freaking walls after a while. They are very fast as well, so any professional athlete that has to do with running far, running fast, using different body parts to do the sport, you know, they can all be a monk and for some reason wind up in an adventuring party. Your football player could be really good with the legs. Mind you, Americans, I'm talking about European football here. The one you know as soccer. They're really good with their legs because they've been kicking the ball all day long. They have perfect control, so maybe they don't use their arms at all. They just kick all day long, kick the enemies into oblivion. Nothing hurts like a good shin kick with soccer shoes. So that's another option. Just make him a professional athlete, which would also give you, if you can squeeze the points out of it, of course, a more inclination to play a social monk. Just my spy had it as well. He had really good deception, but this could be a monk with, through your background, I'm assuming, to pick up like persuasion or performance or whatever for your monk. and make them a bit more a center stage Bart style personality, but with all the kick-assery that comes with being a monk. And then the last thing I have for you today is actually very simple: a superhero. Play your monk like a goddamn superhero. Think of any superhero that just fights with fists. Obviously, you have Iron Fist or Shang-Chi or... well, the Hulk again would be a barbarian, but any type of superhero that just fights with their fists could be a monk. Because of the fact that you rarely take falling damage, the monks get a feature to reduce falling damage. You can do those cool superhero entries where you run up a building and then jump down, bam, for the superhero landing and start punching and kicking and maybe shooting lasers if you're an Elements or Sunstrike monk. Maybe you have a weapon and you can go for the Hawkeye themed stuff because you have a bow and arrow, or maybe a sword if you want to be Ronin. I'm more into Marvel than into DC, my apologies. Heck, even Superman could work if you can't fly, obviously, but you have you're very strong. At least you can punch really hard, and the like freezing breath and whatever could be from a 4 elements monk, for example. So, and how would you play that out? Well, obviously you could be some vigilante in a major city or in a larger province, maybe, who has come into contact with criminals, with a criminal organization, and that could be your hook into whatever story your dungeon master is running. So in short, we have angry dwarf spy, we have professional athlete, and we have superheroes. Those are 3 very different ways from playing your monk, so that they're not just the traditional Asian monastery monk. If you want to play it that way, as always, Dungeons and Dragons is your game. Play something that you like. And there we are. I'm already done for today. Jeepers creepers, that went really fast. Oh, by the way, I am doing something special. In a bit of a weird idea, I want to do some sort of competition, but alas, the Attic Dungeon does not have the great funds to throw away free books like any other of the big guys. So what I am offering you is very simple, a one-shot run by me, yes. Now, the first time I'm doing this, so this will be the first time I'm offering myself as a prize. That sounds really weird. I'm going to run it in person, so I'm sorry my non-Belgian / Dutch, German, French fans, if I have those, I suppose I do. I'll see that in the next time I can do one online, and then I can include people from different time zones. But for now, I'm going to organize a competition where you can actually enter to win a one-shot run by myself. Yay! On a location and a time that we will agree on. If you want to participate in this competition, you will have to go to my Facebook page, where you will receive all the information. And I now think that I took this one long shot today because I'm limited in time, and I forgot to mention it at the front that people need to wait until the end of the clip for some exciting competition stuff. Oh well, I'll just put it in the comments. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody around the world, thank you for watching. Hopefully I will see you again in 2 weeks in the Attic Dungeon.